You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron. Now here's your host, Ethan Haristadoulou.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Greeks Gridiron. I'm Ethan Haristadoulou, and today we are taking a look at the AFC West defensive rankings today, ranking just the defensive side of the football. If you have not already, we've already gone through all 8 divisions, ranking the offenses. We're now ripping through doing the same on the defensive side of the football. So after this, check out the offensive rankings for the AFC West as well. Comment down below. Let me hear from you all. Your agrees, your disagrees. Do you think I'm stupid? Do you think I'm spot on? Fire away in that comment section. Let me know. But if you're going to disagree with me and you're going to call me out for being wrong about something, at least bring an argument to the table. Give me a reason to at least question my own rankings. Don't just tell me I'm wrong. That's no fun. I love talking with you all in the comments, whether we agree or not. That being said, we're going to work our way from the bottom and up to the top of this ladder here, starting at the number 4 spot. Again, just defensive rankings. I cannot stress that enough. It somehow gets by a lot of people. At number 4, after some heavy consideration, and this is a really good division. I think I look at the AFC West and go, being 4th in this division is not necessarily the same as being 4th in some of the other divisions in the NFL. I had to settle on the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm sorry, Raider Nation, but unfortunately for you all right now, with a decent amount of changing going on with the roster itself, coupled with the fact that we're looking at a new head coach, it's going to be basically a new system rolling through Las Vegas. There are things I like. There are things I am excited about, but there are things I also have question marks about as well. Obviously, it starts with that defensive line led by Max Crosby, and hopefully Christian Wilkins can pick up the pacing on the interior as well. But I also look at a guy like Malcolm Kuntz, who missed he missed all of last season. Now that I think about it, he missed the entirety of the 2024 season. He had a really strong 2023 year, 8.5 sacks. You're hoping that despite missing that entire year, he's able to bounce back. 1-year prove-it deal. He could recapture some of that magic that had a lot of people buzzing and talking about what they were hoping to see from him going into the 2024 season before missing the entire year due to injury. There's also a lot of work that was done in the interior of this defense, more so the middle portion. If you're looking at the linebacker room, it's vastly different. You see a signing of a Landon Roberts. You see the signing, a very recent one as well, in Jermaine Pratt, former Bengals linebacker. Devin White brought in as well, who's been bumping around the league since leaving Tampa Bay. This is a group that I'm really interested in seeing. It feels very athletic and a group of guys that can definitely move. It's just a matter of how much does this translate in year number 1 under Pete Carroll's defense that he'll be deploying this year. Again, I'm not saying that it's not going to be good. I'm not going to say that the ceiling isn't there. But for me right now, when I look at this group of guys, Jermaine Pratt, I don't want to say he was let go for a reason. It felt more just like new defensive coordinator. Maybe they're making some changes. And Pratt and the Bengals have, and for what it's worth, the Bengals as a whole with that organization and how they decide whether or not they're going to pay people is beyond anyone's understanding right now, aside from the people in that front office. But there's just a lot going on there. So I don't look at the Jermaine Pratt releases like there's a reason he was let go. That's probably a really complicated situation. I think Jermaine Pratt brought a lot to that Bengals defense, especially during the time period when they were pushing for Super Bowl runs or just pushing deep into the playoffs. So I do like that there. But like I said, Devin White's been bumping around elite athleticism. If he can actually find his role in this defense, that's an exciting guy to look at. I think that whole room is really up in the air right now, so I'll be interested to see how it all plays out with a guy like Tommy Eichenberg, who was drafted last year, 7th-round pick as well, and a Cody Lindenberg as well. So it's just, that's a group that I'm really intrigued by. We have nothing to really go by as of this current point. You look at, on top of that, the secondary, another group that got a lot of work. I will say that I think that you could probably say the secondary is, at the very least, somewhat better than what it was last year. When you look at just the swap you essentially did with Green Bay, as you allowed Nate Hobbs to depart and then you go and you bring in Eric Stokes, that's one of those things where you never got like elite level production. I'm talking like turnovers and things like that from Nate Hobbs. I think he was a solid corner for the Raiders during his time here, but there was a reason I feel like the Raiders allowed him to walk during free agency. Eric Stokes has had his moments throughout his career, but injuries have also been a problem as well. I think a healthy Eric Stokes mitigates the loss of Nate Hobbs. And then you also look at the addition further back into the defense with safety Jeremy Chin, somebody who I really liked in Washington last year, and I feel like is more a result of just the fact that Washington Washington's going to have to be dishing out some monies to some guys very soon, and this was one of those, like, let's move on from it now sort of things and just not have to deal with it down the road. I really liked Jeremy Chin in Washington. I even liked him during his time in Carolina as well, so I think that's a really good pickup for the back end of the defense. You look at a draft pick like third-round selection Darian Porter, one of my favorite draft prospects coming out of this year's class. I am very much a physical traits guy. You quite simply cannot teach physical traits. 6'4", nearly 200 pounds, 4.3 speed. He has elite athleticism, elite size for a cornerback, and if you can put that all together, you have yourself a really threatening piece in the secondary. It's just a matter of can he put that together. But from just a raw prospect as a whole, getting him in the third round, that's someone that I really, really hope Las Vegas can develop and turn into a legit guy in this in this league, because I think with this, again, size speed combo, athleticism all together, there's a lot to work with there at 6'4", nearly 200 pounds. So there's a lot of uncertainty with this defense. I do think that there are things you can look at and go, this should be a pretty good unit overall. And like I did say at the top, being fourth in this division is not the same as being fourth in a division like the AFC South or something along those lines. This is a division filled with some really good defenses that were strong last year and are all probably going to take a step forward. I'd be kind of shocked if any defense out of this group before takes a step back this year. I think they're all, it feels like at the very least, going to be better this year. So this is more so just a product of the circumstance more than anything else, and dealing with a lot of really good competition within the division. But I do like the direction Las Vegas is heading in. It's just a matter of I feel better about what we've seen from the other three teams overall, and my anticipation of them taking another step further going into this next season and further ahead than the Las Vegas Raiders themselves. At the number 3 spot, and I love the poll, the reaction, some of the comments we saw in the poll that I put out from this yesterday, and just seeing the way the entire grouping kind of shook itself out based off of who thought who was the number 1 team in the division here. I think there is very much a debate for all of these teams in some capacity, depending on where exactly you should put them. Like my 4 through 1, I could completely understand if somebody has it in a complete different order or some variation that's similar, but like flip a team here, flip a team there kind of thing. I think the conversation for the AFC West is wide open. But for me at number 3, I am looking right at the Los Angeles Chargers here. Now, again, I really like what this team is doing. I expect them to be just as good, maybe even a tad bit better, and I think they were a pretty strong unit last year. The fact that this team is one of the younger defenses in the NFL with 6 projected starters being drafted in 2022 or sooner, there's a lot to like, because not only are these guys young and hungry and ready, but they've also been productive. And you also have guys, veteran leaders like a Khalil Mack, like a Derwin James, like a Dante Jackson you brought in during free agency here to help lead those young guns. And I think this is a really good group altogether, from the front end of the defense all the way to the back end. I think when you look at the decision to allow Joey Bosa to walk, obviously a fan favorite in LA, injuries though, he quite could never shake the injury issues. And even now over in Buffalo, he's already set to potentially miss some time, at least during the summer period here. Whether or not he's ready to go at 100% at the start of Bill's training camp next month is very much remains to be seen. But it's just one of those things that I can completely understand why LA was ready to move on, considering the amount of money he was making. But another piece of that, and for those of you that maybe aren't in the know, has to do with, and I really hope I say his name right, forgive me if it's wrong, Tuli Tuipulotu, racking up 8.5 sacks last season and a really strong presence in the opportunity that he got last year, obviously being a 2023 draftee, taking a year to really get himself going, and then last year really starting to step up in the opportunities he got. I think him being paired up with the ageless Khalil Mack, who continues to just be productive, regardless of whoever is on the opposite side of him, this guy seems to find ways to rack up sacks, pressures, you name it, and even his down years are better than some guys' good years. So this is a really interesting combo where you start to look at the bigger picture of why Joey Bosa was allowed to walk. And was Joey Bosa departing really that big of a loss for this defense? I kind of say no. I feel like the Chargers are in a really good spot as far as the edges are concerned. And them losing Joey Bosa really doesn't have me sweating too much. Again, you're looking at Tuli's numbers, damn near 10 sacks last season in his second year in the NFL, and working alongside Khalil Mack, he's the guy that's facing the double teams. He's the one getting all the attention. That's only going to pay dividends for him as he goes through his third season. And that third year is typically where you really start to see like the fruits of the labor of progression and growth for edge rushers. This could be a monster season for him and a monster season for this duo as a pair running off the edges there. And then I look at the secondary, and I think this is a really good young group of guys that kind of came out of nowhere and surprised a lot of people. You have 2 fifth-round picks that are going to be seeing a ton of time that looked pretty good last year. You look at Tariq Still finishing 7th in Defensive Rookie of the Year voting, and on top of that, racking up 4 interceptions last season. A guy, again, coming out of the 5th round. I don't think you have a lot of expectations for him coming out of the 5th round, but he stepped up big time for this secondary. Cam Hart, another guy in the 5th round who saw a decent amount of snaps himself last year. Someone who could be stepping into a larger role as well, more on the outside than anything else. I really like this current state of this Chargers team. They have drafted very well, and they have a really good group of core young guys who were a effective defense last year. And with another year under their belt, and again, the right leadership in place, love Khalil Mack, love Derwin James for that defense as like the de facto leaders there. I think Dante Jackson coming into a really young secondary that's going to see a lot of guys that are maybe a year or two at best into their career to this point, working alongside someone like him who's been a very effective corner through much of the duration of his career. This is a really good group altogether, and so I'm sitting with them at number 3. Moving into the top half of the division, though, number 2 and number 1. There's a lot of conversation that can be had about all of these defenses, but that number 2 and number 1 spot is a tough one because you look at a team like the Chiefs, Super Bowl bound consistently year over year, just coming off of their 3rd appearance straight in a Super Bowl, their defense being a huge reason as to why they were the AFC representative in the big game for the 3rd straight year. It was certainly not in part due to their offense. Then you look at a team like the Denver Broncos, a defense that I think is young, is up and coming, and is already one of the best defenses in the NFL, and they have a lot of people that I don't think quite have the name recognition they deserve yet, and this is going to be that year where people really start to figure out what Denver's defense is all about. So at the number 2 spot, heavy consideration here, I decided to go with the Kansas City Chiefs. That being said, you look at this group, much like the Chargers, a lot of really good drafting going into this defense. Every single year, it seems like at least a guy or two is able to step in and fill in a role and ultimately start right out of the gate for them and be an effective guy. This is the reason that this team was 15-2 last year, won a lot of tight games, and ultimately found themselves in the Super Bowl. Led by Steve Spagnuolo, there is just Steve Spagnuolo, in my eyes, best defensive coordinator you could possibly ask for at this current moment in the NFL. I'm sure that's plenty up for debate with a lot of people, but for me, what Steve Spagnuolo has done during his time in Kansas City has been unbelievable, and his time before that as well. There is a reason a lot of people look at him and consider him the best defensive coordinator in the game right now. But you look at this group, it's basically a run-it-back group, and, I mean, for good reason. Yeah, there's a few draft picks you can look at, and maybe a few guys here or there that they picked up, like a Mike Edwards or a Jerry Tillery, nice veteran presence, but those are depth guys. And then even the draft picks, you look at like Omar Norman Lott, you look at Jeffrey Bossa, who I actually really like as a cover linebacker, and I think give him like a couple years, and he could wind up taking over if you look at some of the like interior linebackers like a Drew Tranquill, or if like for whatever reason Nick Bolton ends up being allowed to walk at some point down the road, like whatever it may be, Bossa brings a ton of athleticism as a cover linebacker, so I really like him there. Noel Williams, all those guys, I like them, but at this current moment in their careers and where Kansas City is at as a defense currently, they're basically all depth pieces at this current moment here. You only really look at like Christian Fulton as the guy that they brought in this offseason as a corner who's probably going to see a significant amount of play time out of everybody else I just mentioned, and that's just in large part because the starting unit of the Chiefs is rock solid, solidified. You have a ton of excellent players working on there. Chris Jones, obviously on the interior, the leader of that defensive front. You go more towards the back end of the defense. You look at an all-pro like a Trent McDuffie. This defense is very good. Nick Bolton, like I just mentioned previously. And for what it's worth, again, you can, if you want to sit here and try and say the group's bound to fall off, they've been too good for too long, whatever it may be, or the Chiefs get all the calls, blah, 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 whatever it may be, This is a unit that's typically top 5, if not somewhere within the top 10 year over year. They were a top 5 unit in generating pressure last season. They were a top 10 run defense last season. And these guys have all been together for so long now. They all know how to work in a unit. And when it comes to defense, I really do feel like consistency is key at every level, and knowing what the guys around you are going to do because you all have been playing together for so long is a massive benefit on the defensive side of the football. It's obviously, you could say that for any part of the game in general, but when you look defensively as to just how many moving parts are reacting more so than attacking because you're reacting to the offense, I think it does weigh a little bit more on the defensive side. But I love what this unit is from front to back here. And for a defense themselves, like we talked about the Chargers being a really young group, 7 starters who were drafted in 2021 or sooner. A lot of really young guys that are at this point in their careers are pushing for those second contracts. They've established themselves. I just mentioned Trent McDuffie, all-pro already. Like, you have leaders at every single level. I basically look at like the big 3 for me in Kansas City's defense. This is just my opinion. Chiefs fans, you feel free to shoot off who you feel, but it's Chris Jones on the D-line, it's Nick Bolton in the middle of that defense, it's Trent McDuffie in the secondary, and those are my like big 3 for that unit. And there's not a lot of teams out there that you can sit there and just go all-pro, Pro Bowler, all-pro, Pro Bowler, probably should be an all-pro, or maybe not all-pro, but probably should be a consistent Pro Bowler and a Nick Bolton. But like, I love what the Chiefs have going on at every single level. Maybe I sound like I'm glazing, but I just respect what they're doing there. It is what it is. I'm not a Chiefs fan. I have no dog in the fight of this division here. This is strictly just me appreciating what the Chiefs have been able to do over the last few years, how young they are, how well they've drafted, and everyone that they're bringing in consistently now at this point here. Depth, youth for the future. They're able to grow in the defense with no pressure. They have done a phenomenal job to this point. And then, of course, at the number 1 spot, the Denver Broncos, a unit that does not get the love it quite honestly deserves. There is so much going on in this defense right now as far as youth and talent and guys that are either all pros or perennial Pro Bowlers or should be getting all pros or defensive MVP awards. I want to highlight Nick Bonito right out of the gate because this is someone that, looking at defensive rankings last year, this has stuck in my mind all season long. And I remember doing this same thing last year, and I wish I could remember who it was, and maybe I could have gone back and found the comment, but they pointed out that everyone I was discussing on the defense last year, and I was very high on Denver's defense last year going into the season as well, I pointed out all these different guys, and they go, you didn't mention Nick Bonito. He's somebody that you really got to watch. 8 sacks the year before, looked really good. And I thought to myself, yeah, up-and-coming guy, looked really good, but I wasn't somebody who was like on my radar like that. After watching what Nick Bonito did last year for this defense, this is that season where he's really going to announce himself to the league. If he didn't already last year, this is the year to do so. You obviously have Pat Surtain II working on this defense. I do think you have a really strong group of interior linebackers as well. You go and you bring in Dre Greenlaw. Hopefully his injury issues just do not hold him back and he's able to come out of the gate week 1 and be an effective playmaker for him. I think he's a massive upgrade playing alongside Alex Singleton there. Then that secondary, you arguably have, and this is either probably or they are, the best safety tandem in the NFL right now with Talanoa Hufanga, and on top of that, Brandon Jones working opposite of him. Those are 2 guys, so long as they're healthy, that is probably the best safety tandem in the NFL at this current point here. You look at the fact that they brought in Jahdae Barron into the secondary. He's going to be working probably around the nickel role for the most part, but a great guy to have on the inside of that defense working at covering guys. You look across the board, and there's so much talent here. One of the best run defenses in the NFL last season. And on top of that, they had 9 more sacks than second place last year and 15 more pressures than second place last year as a pass rush. The sky is the limit for what Denver's defense can do. If the offense can catch up to the level of production that this defense had last year, the Denver Broncos are primed to have themselves one hell of a season and one hell of a run. They brought the Chiefs to the absolute limit last season, and that was with a rookie quarterback and Sean Payton, who just basically flipped the offense and was like, this is what we're going to do going forward. We're going with the young guy. We're making a few changes here. We're abandoning the Russell Wilson project that started up. Like, I have so much respect for what's going on in Denver right now, and that defense is going to be a problem this season. It's a great unit that has a great mix of youth and experience, and I really feel like they're only scratching the surface over there in Denver right now. And this is, again, I've been high on this defense for a while now. The last couple of seasons, I was really high on them going into last year, and the defense ended up being better than I thought. And at this point right now, you're flirting with a top 3 defense to somewhere within that top 3, and it might not be 3. So keep an eye out for Denver. I just really love what they've got brewing right now over there. But those are my rankings for the AFC West. Let me know in the comments down below. Thoughts, opinions, what do you agree with? What do you disagree with? Let me know. But as always, if you made it to the end, I greatly appreciate it. I'll see you all next time. Have a good one.